This specification defines the requirements and programs for the American Welding Society to certify welding inspectors. The certification of welding inspectors requires documentation of experience, satisfactory completion of an examination, and proof of visual acuity. The examination tests the inspector's knowledge of welding processes, welding procedures, destructive tests, terms, definitions, symbols, reports, safety, and responsibilities. The purpose of welding inspection is to determine if a weldment meets the acceptance criteria of a specific code standard of other document. The welding inspector must be thoroughly familiar with the welding processes, welding procedures, welder qualifications, material, the limitation of weld test, to be able to read drawings, prepare and keep records, prepare and make reports, and make responsible judgments. For welding inspectors to be effective, the activities performed should be consistent with the requirements and technical and ethical principles. AWS CAWI specification for certification of AWS welding inspectors was first published in 1975. Subsequent editions were published in 1988, 1996, 2006, and 2007. This document, CAWI 2016 specification for certification of AWS welding inspectors, replaces the 2007 edition. The first examination for the certification of welding inspector were conducted in the spring and fall of 1976. More than 97,000 individuals have met the requirements of AWS CAWI worldwide since the start of this program. Scope: this specification established the requirements for American Welding Society AWS certification of welding inspection personnel. It describes how personnel are certified and principles of conduct and practice by which certification may be maintained. Any oral or written claim of certification under the guidelines established therein shall be made only by those individual SCWIs, CWIs, and SCWIs who are, at the time of the claim, current and the compliance with all sections of the specification. This specification meets or exceeds the requirements of AWS B5.1 2013 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. This specification supersedes AWS CAWI 2007. The three levels of certification are Senior Certified Welding Inspector SCWI, Certified Welding Inspector CWI, and Certified Associate Welding Inspector CAWI. In this certification process, AWS conducts an examination to determine a person's general knowledge of welding inspection and related technical areas. No determination is made of any individual's capability in applying that knowledge within a specific environment or under actual work conditions. It shall be the responsibility of the employer to determine that the SCWI, CWI, or CAWI is capable of performing the duties involved in her particular welding inspection assignment. This specification is intended to supplement the requirements of an employer code or other documents and shall not be conducted as a preemption of the employer's responsibility for the work of or for the performance of the work. Statement on safety. Safety and health issues and concerns are beyond the scope of this specification and therefore are not addressed therein. Safety and health information is available from the following sources: American Welding Society ANSI Z49.1 Safety in Welding, Cutting and Allied Processes. Second, AWS Safety and Health Fact Sheets. Third, other safety and health information on the AWS website. Material equipment manufacturers. First, safety data sheets supplied by materials manufacturers. Second, operating manual supplied by equipment manufacturers. Verbal uses as used in the specification. The word shall denotes a requirement, the word should denotes a guideline, and the word may denotes an obligation to make a choice. Levels of certification and endorsements. There are three levels of AWS certification of welding inspection personnel. Endorsements may be added to certifications. These levels are defined as follows. Senior Certified Welding Inspector (SCWI), a person certified by AWS as meeting the qualification requirements of Clause 5.3, Clause 6.1 and Clause 6.2 of AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors and 5.2 of this specification. Certified Welding Inspector (SCWI), a person certified by AWS as meeting their qualification requirements of Clause 5.2, Clause 6.2 and Clause 6.2, 6.1 and 6.2 of AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Certified Associate Welding Inspector (CAWI), a person certified by AWS as meeting the qualification requirements of Clause 5.1, Clause 6.1 and Clause 6.2 of AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Endorsements may be added to the SCWI and CWI certification as outlined in specific endorsement publications. The welding terms used in the specifications are defined in AWS A3.0, standard welding terms and definitions. Other terms used in the specifications are defined as follows. Active supervisions. Direct on-site or readily available supervision by the CWI, SCWI in the form of necessary instructions to ensure that the SCWI can perform specific evaluation as specified by the employer. Applicant, a person who applies to the AWS for a certification. AWS certification department, the department that administers the certification activities of the AWS. Certificate, the document issued to the applicant on successful completion of the requirements for certification. Certification, the act of determining, verifying and attesting in writing to the qualification of a personnel in conformance to specific requirements. Certified, having met the AWS certification requirements. Code, a standard consisting of a set of conditions and requirements relating to a particular subject and indicating appropriate procedures by which it can be determined that the requirements have been met. A standard suitable for adopting in whole or in part by a governmental authority as part of a law or regulation or as specified by other mandatory documents. Committee, the certification committee of the AWS. Endorsements, indication of additional knowledge, skill or ability documented in writing and related to an individual certification credentials. Examination, all testing required to attain an AWS certification. Non-destructive examination, NDE, the process of determining accessibility of a material or a component in accordance with established criteria without impairing its in future usefulness. Professional development or PDH, a unit of approved professional or education activity involving class participation or performing as an instructor. PDHS are used to determine continuing education eligibility for recertification under this program. Qualification, demonstrated training, skill, knowledge and experience required for personnel to perform the duties of a specific job. Qualified, having complied with specific requirements. Re-examination, all testing required to attain or renew an AWS certification. Retest, a segment of an examination that may be administered when an applicant failed to achieve a passing grade on the equivalent segment during an examination for AWS certification. Specification, a standard detailing the essential technical requirements for material, product, system or service. It includes the procedures, methods, qualifications or equipment necessary to verify compliance. This specification is considered mandatory when cited by a mandatory document or when agreed upon the parties, such as for procurement purpose. Standard, a document providing rule or guidelines produced by consensus and approved by a recognized body. The term standard encompasses 5 AWS categories: code, specification, method, recommended practice, and guide. Functions of certified personnel. The SCWI shall be able to perform inspections, supervise, and one or more CWI, CAWIs, or ND personnel, prepare inspection procedures and review, and interpret joining procedures, conduct audit of vendors and or organization providing materials or services to the project, and ensure that the work performed and record maintained conform to the requirements of the applicable standards and other contact documents, and perform all SCWI duties listed in AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. The SCWI and CWI shall be able to perform inspection or to verify that the work inspected and record maintained conform to the requirements of the applicable standard, and perform all WI duties listed in AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of the welding inspectors. The CWI and CWI shall be able to verify the qualification of welders to various code and or standards, the requirements of the AWS QC7 Certified Welding Program and the National Registry of AWS Certified Welders are outside the scope of this specification. The CAWI shall be able to perform inspection only under the active supervision as defined in the specification of a SCWI or CWI. The SCWI or CWI shall maintain the responsibility for determining final acceptance. Education and experience requirements. The applicants seeking AWS, SCWI, CWI and CAWI certification shall meet the applicable education and experience requirements as stated in clause 5.5 of AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of the welding inspectors for the desired level of certification. And in addition to requires of AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors, applicants for SCWI shall have been certified as a CWI for a minimum of 6 years out of the previous 8 years. The application submitted by an applicant shall include a listing of a relevant work and employment. The work history shall include a listing of all relevant employers and their contact information when available, the nature of the work performed, the dates of employment, and affidavit with the applicant's signature, physical signature of AWS approved digital signature, attesting to accuracy of the information provided, the work history of subject to verifying by the AWS certification department, and false information is caused to reject the application and can qualify the applicant from testing to become an AWS CWI, CWI or SCWI. Experience claimed by applicants for all levels of certification and recertification shall be documented by one or more of the following. Completion of the following for the employment verification section of the application for certification. A letter of employment on company letterhead from present and former employers indicating applicant's name, social security number optional, job title, start date, company name, company address or telephone number, and the telephone number, immediate supervisor's name, and the name and title of persons completing the letter. A letter or organizational letterhead from the applicant associated or affiliated organizational representative containing information relevant to the organization in which they were employed, accompanied by official copies of the work assignment sheets, books or records. 2 letters of reference on company letterhead from separate client attesting to the nature of the work assignments during the period of performance required for certification for self-employed or contact applicants. If letters of reference cannot be particularly obtained, applicant shall submit an affidavit describing what type of work activity they performed and indicating the time frame of that activity for sufficient number of clients to establish the length of activity required. 15.4 of this classification. Additional supporting documentation such as lesson plans, letters, billing, invoices or check stubs also may be submitted. All applicants shall be responsible for using the most current applications as provided by the AWS certification department. Use of obsolete forms may delay the certification process. Examination requirement for SCWI and CWI. Senior Certified Welding Inspector. Applicant seeking SCWI certification shall successfully meet the SCWI requirement as contained in Clause 6.2 and Clause 7.2 of AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Applicants shall pass the examinations as follows. Examination SCWI Part A and Part B. Make minimum number of questions 200, minimum percentage of correct answer 72. A re-examination shall be considered as any test taken within 1 year 12 months of the original test date. Applicants may take up 2 re-examinations within 1 year of the original test date. Alternative certification for the CWI. The CWI applicant shall be an approved core of mandatory endorsement exams and a specified additional number of elective endorsement exams. The mandatory endorsement exams shall be designated by the committee. Certified Welding Inspector. Applicants seeking CWI certification shall successfully meet the WI requirements as contained in Clause 6.2 and Clause 7.1 of AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Applicants shall pass the examinations as follows. Examination Part A Fundamentals. Minimum number of question 150, minimum percentage of correct answers 72. Part B Practical. Minimum number of question 40, minimum percentage of correct answers 72. Part C Code Book. Minimum number of question 46, minimum percentage correct answer 72. Code book endorsement not applicable for minimum number of questions 72 for minimum percentage of correct answers required. Other endorsements minimum number of questions not applicable, minimum percentage of correct answers as defined in the endorsement specifications. Applicants who achieve a 72% overall composite score, simple average of 3 parts of the examination and fail to meet the requirements of clause 7.2.2 may retake those parts failed subject to the requirements of clause 6.2.5. An applicant shall select and indicate on his or her certification applicable the code to which they are to be tested. Applicants are responsible for verifying the CAWI certification department which codes are available and which edition of those codes are applicable to the examination. The maximum number of retests taken in 3-year period starting with the original test date in 3. Applicants must take the first retest of the failed segments without additional training. Only one retest without document evidence of additional training is permitted. Any retest, 2 second and third retest shall require documented evidence of additional training in accordance with the following. Full 3-part re-examination, 40 hours of further training received in welding inspection in the exam subject and categories in AWS B5.1. First part or second part retest, 16 hours of further training received in welding inspection specified to the AWS B5.1 exam subjects and categories failed. The training documentation shall include a detailed description of the courses of other training means, the number of contact hours for each course or session, and a certificate or letter of completion. A contact hour shall consist of not less than 50 minutes of instruction and each continuing education credit CEU shall be considered as 10 PDHS. If the required documentation cannot be supplied with the retest application, results will not be released until the required documentation is received. Any application who fails to pass the Part C code book portion of the CWI examination is required to retest using the same code used for the original examination during the 3-year retest period. Applicants who previously passed their Certified Welding Educator CWE exams, parts A and B of the CWI exam or at or above CWI levels shall be exempt from retaking parts A and B, but shall require to pass only the code book portion part C at CWI levels. No CAWI certification shall be given. AWS may allow or require applicants to take and pass Part A first before qualifying to take Part B and C for separate examinations. The rules shall be as follows. Part A. Applicants must achieve a 72% or higher passing pass to qualify to take Part B and C. Retest. Applicants who fail to achieve a 72% passing marks may take a first retest of Part A no sooner than 24 hours after the start of the previous exam. Subsequent retest requires 16 hours of qualified documented training. See clause 6.2.5.2 in Welding Fundamentals. Retest limitations. Applicants may not exceed 4 exam attempts in a 3-year period on Part A. If the applicant has not passed Part A within 3 years of initial test attempt, he or she must submit a new initial application to the AWS with updated work and education experience. Recognition. Applicants who pass will receive a confirmation letter that they have passed Part A and are now eligible to take Part B and C. No certification status will be earned by passing Part A. Part B and C. Once an applicant passes Part A, he or she may attempt Part B and C. Part B and C must be attempted on the same day. Applicants must achieve a 72% or higher achieving passing marks on both Part B and C to earn a CWI. Applicants who achieve a 60% or higher mark on both parts but below the marks necessary for CWI, no one or both parts will earn a CWI. Retest. Applicants who achieve a 72% overall composite score simple average of Part B and C on the examination but fail to achieve a 72% on each part may retake those parts failed subject to the requirements of clause 6.2.7.2. A first retest of the parts required may be scheduled no sooner than 24 hours after the start of the previous exam. Subsequent retest required 16 hours of qualified documented training. See clause 6.2.5.2 in one or both of the parts failed. Retest limitations. Applicants may not exceed 4 exam attempts in a 3-year period on Part B and C. If the applicant has not passed Part B and C within 3 years of initial test attempt on Part A, he or she must submit a new initial application to AWS with updated work and education experience but must restart the examination process over again by passing Part A per clause 6.2.7.1. Note: persons eligible for CAW are cautioned that by accepting a CAWA certification from the AWS, they are now limited or how they can practice inspection activities. If they are unable to comply with these restrictions, it may be best to surrender the CAWI certification and to continue to work in certified. CAWI certification is obtained when an applicant achieves the following on the CAW examination. Examination Part A Fundamentals. Minimum number of question 150, minimum percentage of correct answer 60. Part B Practical. Minimum number of question 40, minimum percentage of correct answer 60. Part C Code Book. Minimum number of question 46, minimum percentage of correct answer 60. CAWIs shall adhere to the requirements of clause 15.1 of this specification. Applicants who achieve the minimum scores in clause 7.1 of this specification shall awarded a CAWI certification and will be subjected to the requirements of clause 15.1 of this specification. All CAWI certifications issued in accordance with this specification shall have new certification number assigned to them. CAWIs who meet the requirements of section 14 of this specification are eligible for upgrading to CAWI status. Certification upgrade is not automatic. Applicants for upgrade must complete and submit all necessary documents to the AWS Certification Department for considerations. Visual acuity. Applicants for certification as SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall satisfy the visual acuity requirements of Clause 6.1 of AWS B 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. An AWS visual acuity form shall be completed by an ophthalmologist, optometrist, medical doctor, registered nurse, certified physician assistants, or by an other ophthalmic medical personnel, and must include the state or province license number. Examination shall be performed one or more than 1 year prior to the date of the welding inspector examination or the expiration day for renewal and recertification. New visual acuity record do not need to supply it for retest occurring with 1 year from original examination date. The completed eye examination results shall be received by the AWS Certification Department no later than 60 days after the applicant examination date. Applicants who have not fulfilled the visual acuity requirements by that date shall have all record scores and application avoided and may be jeopardy of forfeiting application fees. Photos. Applicants shall submit one passport style cover photograph that meets photo submission requirements. The acceptance of photo is the discretion of the AWS Certification Department. Reciprocity. The committee periodically approves reciprocity arrangements between the program defined in this specification and welding inspector certification programs in the other countries. The terms and conditions of each reciprocity arrangements are unique and conditional upon the uniform administration of the reciprocal program. Changes to programs subsequent to granting reciprocity shall be cause for re-evaluation by the committee of issuance of certification beyond the date of change. Contact the AWS Certification Department for a listing of current approved reciprocal agreements and their respective requirements. Documentation. The AWS shall issue to each SCWI, CWI or CAWI applicant who complies with the applicable requirements of AWS B 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors, a serialized unique number certificate and a valid card stating that the applicant has met the AWS certification requirements. Certification becomes effective on the first day of the month following date of examination. Certification shall be valid for 3 years unless revoked for reason defined in clause 11.6 and the authority of section 12. The certification shall indicate the date of a certification. The valid card shall include the SCWI's, CWI's or CAWI's photo, indicate the expiration date of a certification and any need for corrective license for near vision acuity. It shall also state results for color vision test. SCWIs shall be issued a new certification number that may request that the original date of CWI certification be listed on the SCWI valid card. Verification. The AWS shall release certification test results only to the applicant as CWI, CWI, CAWI or to person or agency designated by the applicant as CWI, CWI, CAWI upon written request and with notarized and witnessed released. The exception to these requirements are members of the AWS staff and members and officers of the committee who may request and receive access to all information relating to program participants in necessary pursuit of their duties on behalf of program. Extra copy of test results in addition to those provided at the time of certification may require payment of a nominal administrative fee. Request for verification of status and certification number of SCWIs, CWIs and CAWIs shall be provided to requesters without charges. Only the certification number, date, certified expiration date, photos, current status, current revoke etc. and recertification limitation, correct vision etc. shall be provided by the AWS staff. members without the express written approval of the applicant, SCWI, CWI or CAWI. Preamble. In order to safeguard the health and well-being of the public and to maintain integrity and high standards of skill, practice and conduct in the occupation of welding inspection, that AWS, SCWIs, CWIs and CAWIs shall be cognizant of the following principles and the scope of the which of the apply, with the understanding that any unauthorized practice is subjected to the committee's review and may result in suspension, reprimand or revocation of certification. Integrity. The SCWI, CWI and CAWI shall act with complete integrity in professional matters and be forthright and candid to their employer, the regular or employer's customer, and with the committee or its representatives on matters pertaining to this specification. Responsibilities to the public. The SCWI, CWI and CAWI shall act to preserve the health and well-being of the public by performing duties required of welding inspection in a conscientious and impartial manner to the full extent of the inspector's moral and civic responsibility and qualification. According to the SCWI, CWI and CAWI shall undertake and perform assignment only when qualified by training, experience and capability, present credential upon request to person authorized to examine them, will not falsely represent current status nor seek to misrepresent the certification level as CWI, CAWI by modification of certification documents or false verbal or written testimony of current level of status, or utilize the certification stamp or number connected to a lapsed or terminated SCWI, CWI or CAWI status. Be completely objective, thorough and factual in any written report, statement or testimony of the work, and include all relevant or pertinent testimony in such communiques or testimonials. Sign only for work that the inspector has inspected or for work over in which the inspector has personal knowledge through active supervision as defined in this specification. Neither associate with nor knowledge participate in a fraudulent or dishonest venture or activity. Public statements. The SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall issue no statement, criticism or arguments on weld inspection matters connected with public policy which were inspired or paid for by any interested party or parties without first identifying the party, the speaker, and disclosing any possible financial interest. The SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall publicly express no opinion on welding inspection subjects unless it is founded upon well knowledge of the facts in issue, upon the background of technical competence pertinent to the subject, and upon honest conviction of accuracy and propriety of the statement. Conflict of interest. The SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall avoid a conflict of interest with the employer or client and shall disclose any business association or circumstance that might be so considered. The SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall not accept compensation, financial or otherwise, from more than one party for service on the same project or for service pertaining to the same project unless the circumstances are fully disclosed to the all interested parties or their authorized agents. The SCWI, CWI or CAWI shall not solicit or accept gratuities directly or indirectly from any party or parties dealing with the client or employer in connection with the SCWI, CWI's or CAWI's work. The SCWI or CAWI shall, while serving in the capacity of an elected, retained, or employed public official, neither inspect, review, nor approve work in the capacity of SCWI, CWI, or CAWI on subject also subject to the inspectors and administrative jurisdiction as a public official unless this practice is expressly dictated by a job description or specification and all affected parties are notified. Solicitation of employment. The SCWI, CWI, or CAWI shall neither pay, solicit, or nor offer directly or indirectly any bribe or commission for professional employment, with the exception of the usual commission required from licensed employment agencies. The SCWI, CWI, or CAWI shall neither falsely exaggerate or nor indulge in the misinterpretation of personal, academic, and professional qualifications, past assignments, accomplishments, and responsibilities, or those of the inspector's associates. Misrepresentation of current SCWI, CWI, CAWI's certification status at the time of subsequent to submission of requested employment information or in the solicitation of business contracts wherein current certification is neither required or inherent. Beneficial advertisement for a training course, consulting services, etc. shall be a violation of this section. The SCWI, CAWI, or CAWI shall not claim that their credentials are suitable for anything outside of the field of welding inspection or for tasks outside of their endorsements. The SCWI, CWI, or CAWI shall not claim that their credentials are suitable for anything outside the field of welding inspection or for tasks outside for their endorsements. The SCWI, CWI, or CAWI shall not disclose proprietary information, commercially valuable information, nor generally known concerning business affairs or technical process of a present or former client employer without their written consent, except as necessary to perform the duties of a CWI, CWI, or a CAWI. Note: while the SCWI, CWI, or CAWI may have established excellent credentials, certification alone may not legally qualify the inspector to provide inspection services to the public. Contact documents or building or jurisdiction laws may require inspection to be performed under the direction and responsibility of others, such as a registered professional engineer. Unauthorized practice. Any violation of any part of the standard of conduct prescribed by this specification, if related to a SCWI, CWI's, or CAWI's occupation, including any violation of the code of ethics contained in this specification, shall constitute an unauthorized practice subject to the imposition of sanctions. Revocation Committee. The committee shall have the power to suspend, refuse renewal, revoke, place on reprobation, or reprimand the SCWI, CWI's, or CAWI's certification for misrepresentation of facts regarding personnel qualification, status, assignments, etc. Relating the SCWI, CWI's, or CAWI certifications, whether such misrepresentation was made at the time of application or on subsequent applications, renewal, etc. The committee may suspend, refuse renewal, revoke, under place or probation or reprimand a certificate holder if found guilty of an unauthorized practice as outlined in 11.6 unauthorized practice in a proceeding conducted in conformance to AWSQC 9 administrative procedures for alleged violations of AWS certification programs available from the AWS certification department. Courts, the committee may apply it to any court of competent jurisdiction for further enforcement of its administrative decisions and rulings. Statement of a revoked certificate shall be allowed with no penalty or prejudice to the individual, provided the reason for such revocation has been recertified to the committee's satisfaction. Upgrading of CAWI certification to CWI. Applicants who score on each part of the examination meet the requirements of clause 6.2.2 of this specification but did not meet the experience requirements of clause 5.2.2 of AWS B5.1 may request an upgrade to the CWI level once the experience requirements are met. The period of validity of CWI certification for individuals who have upgraded in accordance with 14.1 shall not exceed the original period of CAWI certification. The CWI shall not upgrade to the SCWI certification level without complying the requirements of Clause 5.1, Clause 5.2 and Clause 6.1 of this specification. Renewals. CAWIs are not eligible for renewal. A CAWI may only hold the CAWI certification for up to 3-year periods. For anyone receiving initial or subsequent CAWI certification under QC 1 2006 or later edition of QC 1, subclauses 6.2.2 or 6.2.3 and 6.2.5 apply to achieving CWI status. Retest may be scheduled at any time during 3 years CAWI certification in accordance with 6.2.5. The SCWI and CWI shall be responsible for maintaining a current address with the AWS certification department. Please notify the AWS certification department at AWS directly of all address changes. Failure to maintain a current address with the AWS certification department may jeopardize certification status. Maintaining certification by submitting an approved renewal applications to the AWS certification department by the expiration date of current certification and no earlier than 11 months prior to the expiration date of the certification. AWS may send a renewal notice, but if not received, it remains the responsibility of the SCWI or CWI to renew on time. Certification becomes effective on the first day of the month following the date of examination. On that same month and day, expiration occurs 3 years later. A 60-day administrative extension period is allowed. During this time, certification will be considered as expired. If the paperwork is received on time and all renewal or recertification requirements have been met, certification will be reactivated. For example, certification granted May 1, 2008, certification expires May 1, 2011. Administrative extension period May 1, 2011 to June 30, 2011. After June 30, 2011, application must meet the requirements of clause 6.1.2 or 6.2.2 as applicable to gain certification. For personnel serving on active duty with the U.S. Armed Services overseas, contact the AWS Certification Department for current policy or renewing or recertifying. Renewal submitting after the administrative 60 days grace period 15.3 but within 1 year of expiration may be accepted for renewal. However, administrative late fee may be applied. The SCWI and CWI requesting renewal of certification shall attest to having no period of continuous work in activity greater than 2 years in activities as described in AWS B5.5, Specify 5.1, specification for the qualification of welding inspectors during the previous 3 years of certification. The SCWI and CWI not meeting the requirements of 15.4 may renew by taking the CWI Part B practical exam and meet the scoring requirements in 6.2.2 of this specification. SCWI and CWI certification renewals are limited to 2 consecutive 3-year periods. Before the end of the third 3-year period, SCWIs and CWIs are required to recertified by complying with section 16 of this specification. CWIs who are renewing are at their 9-year recertification but seeks SCWI recertification must complete 2 applications. One application shall be for 9-year CWI recertification by either Part B exam or continuing education, and the other application shall be to take the SCWI exam. CWIs who recertify in accordance with 16.3.1 of this specification and desire to sit for the SCWI examination will have to take both the CWI Part B practical and the SCWI examination. Applicants for SCWI certification who successfully meet the requirements for CWI renewal or recertification in advance but fail to meet the requirements of 6.1.2 of this specification shall not lose their CWI status. An approved 9-year recertification application must be in the AWS certification department by the expiration date of the current certification and no earlier than 11 months prior to the expiration date of the current certification. A 60 days administrative extension period is allowed during the time certification will be considered as expired. If the paperwork is received on time and all renewal or certification requirements have been met, certification will be reactivated. Before the end of the 9th year from the date of the initial recertification and each 9 years thereafter, SCWI seeking recertification shall certify either 16.2.1 or 16.2.2. SCWI recertification by examination by certifying the requirements of 6.1 of this specification or by taking a committee approved endorsement, or SCWI recertification by experience and continuing education. The SCWI shall attest to having no period of continuous inactivity greater than 2 years in activities as described in AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors during the previous 3 years of certification, and shall present evidence of activities meeting the requirements of 16.4 and 16.5 of this specification. Before the end of the 9 years from the date of the initial certification and each 9 years thereafter, a CWI seeking recertification shall satisfy either 16.3.1 or 16.3.2 CWI recertification by taking the Part B practical examination or by taking a committee approved endorsement and meeting the requirements of 16.2.2 of this specification. The endorsement will not need to be current at the time of the application for recertification. CWI recertification by experience and continuing education. The CWI shall attest to having no period of continuous inactivity greater than 2 years in activities as described in AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors during the previous 3 years of certification, and shall present evidence of activities meeting the requirements of 16.4 or 16.5 of this specification. The following rules apply to meeting the training for technical requirements in 16.2.2 and 16.3.2 of this specification. A minimum 80 PDHS must be earned, training received or instruction delivered during the 9-year education period, and 20 of those 80 PDHS must be earned in the final 3-year period. The course content must be relevant to one or more of the subject or job function defined in AWS for B 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. A maximum of 80 PDHS are allowed for any 9 course. Credit for a practical course may only be granted once in a 9-year period. Example, a single 40-hour course taught and any number of times can only be used to fulfill 40 hours of the 80 hours required for recertification without examination. Trainers who want to substitute teaching hours for the required PDHS shall submit documentation of the hours of training performed. Such documentation shall include a complete syllabus of subject taught, a copy of the certificates of attendance or completion issued, the number of students attending, the date of the training provided, and documentation that the training was a formal offering and not personal coaching, tutoring, or individual instruction delivered to meet job requirements. Professional development hours PDHS credit towards 9-year certification. PDHS will be credited based upon each contact hour of activity. A contact hour shall consist of not less than 50 minutes of instruction. For applicable courses where CEUs are awarded, each CEU shall be considered as 10 PDHS. The following list shall define the credited in PDHS awarded for each activity. PDHS may be earned by participating in any classroom, correspondence, or distance learning in one or more subject areas listed in AWSB 5.1 specification for the world qualification of welding inspector. Table 1. There is no maximum of PDHS that may be accepted for recertification under this provision, but all PDHS claimed must be accompanied by a course description and recertification of completion indicating the number of course hours. PDHS may be earned by attending local section meeting of professional society AWS or other, where technical presentation that cover one or more of the areas indicated in AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors are given. A maximum of 40 PDHS may be accepted for recertification during the 9-year period and must be accompanied by a section meeting announcement and certification of completion or proof of attendance indicating the number of contact hours for the activity designed by the section chair or other officer. PDHS may be earned for preparation and presentation of a technical session at a local or national conference, AWS or other societies or organizations addressing subjects containing AWSB 5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. A single award of 10 PDHS will be accepted for recertification upon representation of copies of materials used to support the presentation and proof of participation from the host society. A maximum of 20 PDHS can be awarded under this provision during the 9-year period. PDHS may be earned for participation on an AWS standing committee, subcommittee, or task group. A single award of 20 PDHS will be accepted for recertification upon presentation of a letter from the committee chair indicating the documents standards worked on. For participation on volunteer committee of the other organizations, supporting materials such as ballots, minutes, and ballots, meetings, and description of how the committee work in related to AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspector is required. A maximum of 20 PDHS can be awarded under this provision during the 9-year period. PDHS may be earned for a paper, article, or book published in a nationally recognized publication that addresses a subject containing in AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Each publication will result in an award of 10 PDHS with no maximum of PDHS awarded over the 9-year period. All claims for PDHS under this provision must be accompanied by a copy of the published work. PDHS may be earned for patent issued that has an association with the field of welding inspection or testing. Each patent will result in an award of 10 PDHS with a maximum of 20 PDHS over the 9-year period. Patents eligible for this credit must have been issued within the most recent 9-year period. All claims for PDHS under this provision must be accompanied by a photocopy of the issued patent. PDHS may be earned for initial certification as an AWS Certified Radiography Interpreter or ASNT ACCP Level 2 or Level 3 Inspector in a non-destructive method enlisted in AWS B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors. Accepted visual testing. Each initial NDE certification will result in an award of 20 PDHS with no maximum of PDHS over the 9-year period. All claims for PDHS under this provision must be accompanied by evidence of the date of the original certification. PDHS may be earned for initial certification to endorsements offered under the AWS CAWI program. The award of PDHS will be determined based upon the decision of the committee. Contact the AWS certification department for a listing of endorsements and their respective PDHS values. PDHS may be earned for items that are not directly listed in the B5.1 specification for the qualification of welding inspectors if approved by the AWS certification department. SCWIs failing to meet the alternative requirements for recertification using experience and continuing education shall be required to recertify by examination in accordance with 6.1 of the specification. SCWIs who fail to meet the examination requirements of 6.1 shall no longer be certified at any level. Such persons shall be notified of their status in writing. CWIs failing to meet the alternative requirements for the recertification using experience and continuing education, including the AWS 9-year recertification seminar, shall be required to recertify by taking the Part B practical examination or by taking an endorsement approved by the committee for recertification and meet the minimum scores in 6.2.2 to maintain certification at the CWI level. Applicants are permitted to switch the recertification means, example criteria from Part B to an endorsement or between endorsements, provided that deadline noted in 16.7.1 is not exceeded. A CWI failing to pass either the Part B examination or an endorsement examination or by acquiring the required PDHS by the expiration date of their current certification plus the additional for 60 days administrative period is required to pass the 3-part examination: Part A fundamentals, Part B practical, and Part C code examinations in order to maintain their CWI certification. Individual failing to meet these requirements of 6.2.2 or 7.1 shall no longer be certified at any level after their certification expires and will be considered as a new applicant. Such individual will be notified of their status in writing. SCWIs and CWIs who successfully recertify shall be subject to requirements of section 15 of this specification.